welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Horler and I'm here with Steve Pierson of Lovell Minnick. And we're at Money 2020-2016 in Las Vegas. Thank you very much for joining me.
Certainly, thank you for having me.
How great an impact do you think digital disruption and innovation will have on the financial services industry in the future?
I do think it'll be a tremendous impact but it'll play out over a very long period. I think from our perspective as investors in the space, in financial services and financial technology, there are certain trends and certain technologies that we think will play out over many, many years. Blockchain will have some very specific use cases, particularly in the clearing side, that will be very impactful, but we don't think it's an area that's particularly investable today. Whereas if you look at what's happening on the advice segment, what's happening in some of the areas in insurance technology, what's happening in outsourcing, where many of the large banks are very focused on outsourcing areas within the institution that they wouldn't have considered in the past. So risk and middle office and and certain segments in the side asset management, we think that trend will continue for a very long time.
So where do you see FinTech expanding beyond lending?
I think you've seen leading up to even the lending boom, or in the marketplace lending boom in the last couple of years. Certainly it's gotten a lot of the headlines. You saw it impacting the brokerage space. I think that comes through in cycles, where initially the segment was just focused on lowering costs, or at least the FinTech players are focused on lowering cost. What you see now is providing better advice. So still there's a cost component to it, but it's providing advice in a way that is more actionable and really better than what you'd get from humans. We see a good bit of that, and really we see those being pushed out through the bank partners, not necessarily direct to consumers. We also see that it certainly will impact the areas around clearing of products that are traditionally over-the-counter products as opposed to exchange-traded products. We see that picking up significantly in the coming years. We're looking at other segments as well that are interesting to us in not just consumer lending, which I think is really what people think of when they think about digital lending. We're looking at SME lending, equipment lending, areas that have not historically seen as much disruption, and those are areas that we find quite interesting from an investment thesis perspective going forward.
And how do you think financial institutions can respond to these changes?
A number of ways. You see them investing in funds, or at least historically when it was a little bit easier for them to do that, in funds that have focused in financial technology space. You see them coming on as advisors. I think it's a little bit tougher for them to build, so you'll see them invest in companies at later stages and then ultimately acquire. And I think from our perspective as consumers, whether it's advice or lending models, I think having them learn from the disruptive companies that they often are investing with, it benefits all of us. I mean, you tend to see the larger banks and financial service players think first and foremost about regulations and capital, whereas the players that they're often acquiring think first about consumers and speed. And so I do think the banks and other large players, insurance companies, have the advantage of having capital and having a framework that they operate in, and a well-known brand, and I do see them ultimately being the acquirer for many of these businesses in the future.
Steve, thank you very much.
Certainly. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching.